Well, everyone, I have a wonderful guest with me today. His name is the best name I've heard in a long time. Vic Ferrari is here with me today, retired NYPD police officer with many, many great stories to share. And he's got a lot of great books that are available to you right now. I have his Amazon page up in front of me. He has, I see, 5 books right now, Vic.
5. I'm working on a 6th.
6th one's on its way. This is Vic Ferrari on Living the Next Chapter. Welcome, Vic. Nice to have you with us today.
Thank you, Dave.
Tell us about your career as a police officer in New York City.
My name is Vic Ferrari. I'm a 20-year retired member of the New York City Police Department. I grew up in the Bronx. I always wanted to be a police officer and then an NYPD detective. I grew up watching cop movies and cop shows in the 70s and 80s. My parents wanted me to go to college. I wanted none of that. I knew what I wanted to do since I was 5 years old. When I was 21 years old, I became a member of the New York City Police Department. I worked on patrol in the South Bronx. If you ever saw the movie Fort Apache, the Bronx with Paul Newman and Ed Asner, I worked in that building. But by the time I got there, Fort Apache was called Little House on the Prairie because most of the South Bronx had been burned out. I worked in various units. I worked in a DUI unit, which I absolutely hated. I worked in the narcotics division for a time where I purchased drugs and did buy and bust operations. And then my last 10 years, I was a detective in the NYPD's auto crime division, where I worked on chop shops, stealing stolen vehicles, exporting of stolen vehicles out of the country, stuff like Gone in 60 Seconds, or if you ever saw that movie Heat, we worked on organized crews of, bad guys that ran chop shops and stolen car rings and things like that. I did a 20-year career. I retired relatively early in life. I became a police officer down in Florida. I absolutely hated it. I re-retired and I got into writing books. And I've written 5 books, 4 of which are about the New York City Police Department and my experiences and the colorful characters. And there's a lot of funny things in my books. I tend not to focus on the dark side of things, but there are some dark and chilling stories in there. But for the most part, it's the funny characters and just the situations criminals and myself have gotten ourselves into.
So I have the books up here on your Amazon writers page right now. So I'm looking at NYPD Law and Disorder. So tell me a little bit about this book in particular. Right?
Well, NYPD Law and Disorder, all my books are kind of the same in that they're short stories about things that happen in my career. There's no real beginning, middle, or end. You can pick up my books at any point, and they're just stories with themes. So NYPD Law and Disorder opens up with, there's a chapter called Embarrassing Moments. Now, every author likes to paint themselves as the hero in a story. We saved the day. We have the witty comeback. We saw this coming a mile away. Well, in my chapter, Embarrassing Moments, I talk about some of the embarrassing things that happened to me as a cop. So the story opens up with, and this is a true story. I'm working in the Bronx. I'm on patrol. My partner and I pull over a cab. In the back seat of the cab are 3 guys and 4 kilos of cocaine in a shopping bag. So I make the arrest, and I'm on top of the world. I walk into the station house with 4 kilos of cocaine. So I'm parading around the station house like I won the Stanley Cup. All right. People are taking photos of me. I'm on top of the world. So I get all the stuff processed. The drugs go down to the lab. The bad guys go down to court. Now I have to go down to court that evening, sit down with a district attorney and draw up the arrest. It's called an accusatory instrument, where I tell her who, what, where, when, and why, and did I have probable cause to effect this stop and seize this property. So before I meet with this district attorney, across the street from the Bronx courthouse, which is in a terrible neighborhood, they had just opened a new shopping mall with a food court. So I said, oh, this is going to be a treat, because usually it's a greasy burger and fries. There's a food court with restaurants and shops. So I go in there. I go to the food court. I find an Italian place. I get myself veal Parmesan and spaghetti, and I'm sitting there. It's about 8:00 at night. I'm sitting there eating this food, and I'm reflecting about, wow, this is a great arrest, and I'm on top of the world, and this is great. My stomach starts to go. Throughout my life, I've had problems with my stomach, so I got to go to the bathroom like bad. So across the street in the courthouse, the bathroom was disgusting, and I'm saying to myself, well, the food court, it's a brand new facility. The bathroom is probably pristine. So I'm in uniform. I run into the bathroom. There's not a soul in there. And the thing's like a cathedral. Like 3 people use the bathroom before me, right? I go in there. It's clean. It's empty. This is great. I go into the stall. I take off my gun belt. I hang my gun belt on the back of the door. I drop my pants. I'm in uniform. I drop my uniform pants. I'm getting ready for liftoff. And someone kicks in the front door of the bathroom. And I hear 4 or 5 teenagers inside the bathroom, and they're fighting and hitting the hand dryers and turning on the sinks and roughhousing. And I'm like, oh, crap. I mean, yeah, I'm a cop and I'm in uniform, but I'm kind of vulnerable. I'm sitting on the bowl with my pants down to my knees. So all of a sudden it gets quiet. And I said, well, maybe they left. Maybe they saw a pair of pants underneath the stall and they figured to knock it off. So I said, you know what? I should get dressed and get the hell out of here. Just as I'm about to pull up my pants, I look up. And there's a teenager in the next stall standing on the toilet, and he's reaching over the stall wall to grab my gun belt.
Oh.
So I jump up with one hand to pull up my pants. I'm a right-handed. So with my left hand, I'm trying to pull up my pants. My right hand, I grab this kid by the neck, and when I pull him, what do? I inadvertently pull him close to the gun belt, and then he grabs onto my gun belt. Now I drop my pants, and I've got him with one hand, and I'm just punching him, let go. And I'm fighting with him. While I'm fighting with him to let go of the gun belt, his friends run into the next stall, and now they're pulling him. So now it's a tug of war over an aluminum bathroom stall wall. Finally, he lets go of the gun belt. The gun belt hits the floor. They pull him over the side. They go crashing over into the other side and buckle the wall. I pull up my pants. I get my gun belt. I snap it on. I run out. They're gone. I run out into the food court. They're gone. There's a 350-pound porter that's buffing the floor. I go, whoa, stop. I go, did you see a bunch of kids run through here? He goes, no, I didn't see anybody, which is in typical Bronx fashion. So in the story, I go, what was I supposed to do? Call the police on myself? I mean, had a radio call from that precinct showed up, I would have been the laughing stock of the Bronx had I told that story. So I kept it to myself. I pulled up my pants. I went across the street. I wrote up the arrest, and I never told a soul until 30 years later. So that's a story from NYPD Law and Disorder, embarrassing moments.
See? So, like, they don't show this stuff on TV, Vic. I have never seen an episode of CSI or whatever and seen that play out. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they only got 30 minutes or an hour to portray a story. Action is they usually go for action or, empathy. People wouldn't believe the things cops get themselves involved in. In NYPD Law and Disorder, I have a chapter called Sickness, Health, and Fat Bastards. And that's about overweight, out-of-shape cops that get themselves in trouble trying to get a disability pension when there's absolutely nothing wrong with them. There was a guy that we knew that he would go sick. You got a certain amount of times you could take sick time. And this guy would abuse it. He would abuse going out sick. So the NYPD's got a policy. If you're out sick more than several times, they're going to come they're going to come check on you. And if you're not in your house when you're out sick, you're going to lose 30 vacation days and you're going to be put on a year of disciplinary probation. So most people with a hit like that or a penalty that steep, they're not going to screw around. You go sick when you're sick, and they'll call you sometimes. Hey, are you home? What's your tax number to verify who you are and everything? Well, this guy lived 70 miles north of the city, and he was an alcoholic, and he never figured in a million years they would drive up 70 miles to check on this guy. So one afternoon, he's out sick. He goes down to the local tavern. He's having a couple of drinks, and this guy had a big mouth. That's part of the story. He would always speak instead of listening. So some guy walks into the bar with a folder, and he's talking to the bartender, and he says, where's Willow Point Road? So this guy can't help himself. He goes, hey, what a coincidence. I know where Willow Point Road is. You make a right, you make a left, and you go right around the corner. I live on Willow Point Road. Who are you looking for? The guy's looking at his folder. He looks at the picture. He goes, you. The guy got himself in trouble drinking at the bar. He gave directions to the guy that was checking up on him.
Nice. See? Yeah, nice. That's amazing. I love it. Okay, so let's do another one, Vic, because, hey, I got you here. I'm going to pick your brain. So NYPD, looking through the looking glass, stories from inside America's largest police department.
Yeah, that's another book loaded with short stories. There's a story in there where cops doing ridiculous things to lose vacation time. The NYPD has a policy. If you lose your gun and shield, same thing. You can lose 30 vacation days and forfeit a year probation. And if they feel that you did something ridiculous to lose that property, they can fire you. So needless to say, cops are very, you always know where your gun is. You always know where your shield is. Well, this one cop that we knew, he lived in a terrible neighborhood, and he was going out one night, and he didn't want to take his firearm with him. So he hid his gun in the one place no one would look. He hid it in his oven. So he went out, had a couple of drinks, 4 hours, 9 beers later, he comes back to his apartment. He's getting a little hungry. He's going to make some frozen pizzas.
Oh, no.
So what does he do?
Oh, no.
He preheats the oven at 375, and he goes in the next room, and he's laying on the couch watching television.
Oh,
well,
no.
For those of you that don't know, bullets have gunpowder in them. When they get hot, they explode, and his gun started shooting at him from the next room.
Oh.
He had to run out of his house on his hands and knees and call 911 on himself for emergency service to show up to take his destroyed gun and popped rounds out of the oven.
Okay. Yeah, that's not good. That wouldn't be a good meeting, right? To sit down and talk.
He didn't get fired, but he definitely was in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. So growing up, Vic, I've had a huge respect and a special place in my life for officers. There was one gentleman. He's retired now, but he would be the equivalent of a state police officer here in Ontario, Canada. So that's the OPP, and he was a SWAT team lead. And one day he picked me up at home and drove me to school in his SWAT van. I was the coolest kid in junior high for like probably 4 or 5 hours until it wore off, right? But to roll up in a SWAT van with a police officer on, in full uniform, I felt like I was the king of the world, right? And he taught me he's a black officer as well. He taught me the beautiful side of being a police officer and helping people. And I've always had respect for him. And my whole life growing up, I've always looked up to him. So whenever a police officer would cross my path, even to this day, I just feel this kind of I don't fear a police officer. I have respect for what you do and what you've done and the people that served with you. This is not the same job as, working in a retail place, or there's a lot that goes into this, and you see a lot and experience a lot. And the opportunity to speak to you and have you on and to see the stories too is exciting for me to do. And I'm going to be going through all of these books. How do you feel as an officer looking back over your career? And I'm hoping you've had those moments where people, maybe young kids or stuff, have looked up to you and you've been able to set an example for them. Is it equal as far as having respect and then having people who do not respect you? Do you see it as like, does it balance out in some way?
Well, it depends on where you work. I worked the vast majority of my career in the South Bronx and Harlem. I also worked in the Riverdale section of the Bronx, which is a higher income. There's people in the ghetto that liked us, and there was people in nice neighborhoods that hated us. It just depended on who you were dealing with. The thing is with the police, and I write about this, it's almost a parent-child relationship you have with the public. You want to be nice to them, but you can't give away the store. Mm-hmm. And people don't realize they'll call the police to mediate a situation, right? Two people are having an argument, be it domestic, over property rights, over something in the store. And a lot of times the people that call the police think they're in the right. The police show up. They only have a certain amount of time to mediate something. And a lot of times people aren't going to like the answer you give them. And, it's sad, but that's just life. And a lot of times you leave and you're leaving a bitter taste in someone's mouth, but it wasn't by design or malicious. It's just like, listen, you can't throw your husband out of the apartment because he didn't hit you. I know you're not getting along, but he's on the lease and he has just as much legal right to be there. You're going to have to take it to court. Well, he doesn't pay the rent. I get that. But if you lock him out, it's called illegal eviction and I have to arrest you. So there were times like that where, giving this person the answer, they're going to hate you for it. Mm-hmm. But that's just kind of the way it is. You get used to people not liking you. After a while, I mean, it would drive, if at first I was very sensitive to it. I couldn't understand like what I was doing wrong. You get cursed at in the finger or throw stuff at your car. We used to say in a lot, and like, especially like in the housing projects in the Bronx, we would get called to a courtyard of a housing project, be it drug sales or a dispute or whatever. And you're in a courtyard and there's 5 or 6 or 10 30-story buildings, right? And you're in that courtyard. You've got about 5 minutes, maybe less, to make a decision and get out of there. Because what's going to happen is once they figure out you're down there, they're going to go up into those buildings, and we call it airmail. You're going to start getting pelted with batteries and potted plants and books or whatever's in an apartment. We called it airmail. Something was – so you had to make a decision. All right, is this guy going to jail? Is it time to fish and cut bait? Get out of here. So you learn to mediate things very quickly because the longer you hang around with crowds and people, things can get ugly very quickly.
And that's not something I would think you'd learn in an academy setting. That's something you're going to learn being out and doing the job, right? Exactly.
Well, the police academy, and I hate to say this, and maybe things have changed, but I doubt it. The police, for me, I didn't enjoy my time in the police academy because for the most part, the people teaching in the police academy only had, I was 21. Some of my instructors were 25, 26, 27 years old. They barely put in any street time. They ran into the police academy to teach, have set hours so they could study for the sergeant's exam. So it's kind of difficult to respect somebody that's never done it, preaching to you. And I write about this in my books. A lot of the training we had to do, you're getting some person that has no street experience whatsoever. They took a course somewhere and they're telling you what to do. And you're looking at them like, cops can tell. You could sniff it out if someone's genuine or not. And, it's difficult for someone preaching something to you that they've never done themselves.
So if you had a chance to guest lecture at Police Academy tomorrow and you could go in for 10, 15 minutes and talk to these new recruits that are all wide-eyed and ready to go, from your experience, what kind of message would you give these new officers as they look toward a future?
Well, all right, so now I'm out of the game 15 years. Mm-hmm. And I know some young cops, in my area, I'm friendly with a couple. Stay off of social media. Really? The internet is written in pen, not pencil. And you post something ridiculous or put your opinion out there. And I know some cops, they think they're slick that they'll change their name. It's still your picture. Someone can still out you and, hey, you get involved, you see it now where some poor cop gets involved in something and the media is at their house because they're posting pictures. Everybody, they're making videos while they're in uniform and dancing. I see that all the time now. And it's like, you're the police. You want to be taken seriously? I'm not saying you have to be Attila the Hun, but stop making TikTok and YouTube videos of dancing to music or just doing ridiculous things. It undermines your position. If you're not taking yourself seriously, how you expect the people to take you seriously?
That's very interesting. Yeah. I think social media and the internet, everything has changed the game so much. I guess too, like officers today will roll up to do something and there's like 1,000 phone cameras pointed in your direction, capturing every second of everything that's going on, right? So you're living,
right. Nobody's filming the guy at Jiffy Lube.
No.
You know what I mean? No one's filming the guy at Home Depot unless they lose their mind, and have a meltdown. So, cops, it's almost like nowadays, it's almost like you're an actor. I mean, the second you show up, you're on the sound set and action, you know what I mean? And God forbid you say the wrong thing or make a mistake, and even if, something embarrassing happens, and like I said, that embarrassing moments, that story I just told, if this was 30, if fast forward 30 years and that happened, there'd be a video of me running out of a bathroom stall in my uniform, my pants down in my ankle.
Yep.
You know what
exactly,
I mean? Like, how could I continue with my job?
And you were saying about the airmail and showing up at the courtyard and you have 5 minutes to make a choice. I think you probably have less time now with all the phones.
Yeah,
right?
you're 100%. Yeah, exactly.
You have to react right away and know exactly what you're doing. So it's got to be tough. It's got to be really, really tough. So let's talk about NYPD's flying circus. Cops, crime, and chaos. Anything pop into your mind from that?
Yeah, there's a story in that. There's a story in that one. There was a guy we used to work with. He was Irish, but the Spanish cops used to call this guy El Diablo because if you worked with him, you either found God or you got divorced or went to rehab. The guy was just that much of a partier. You know, I mean, every weekend was a new story with this guy. I hung out with him a couple of times and I used to like to go out and have a good time, but he just was a magnet for trouble. So one day he's having a couple of drinks in a bar in Midtown Manhattan, and he's talking to a couple of floozies at the bar, and it's right near Central Park. And one of those guys that drives the hansom cabs, like if you're a tourist in New York, you get in a horse and carriage and go through Central Park for $800 for 15 minutes. The guy walks into the bar and he's got his top hat on and his felt robe. So El Diablo immediately sizes him up and he goes, "Hey, you mind if I take Seabiscuit for a ride?" And the guy goes, "Yeah, sure." And the guy goes to use the bathroom. So El Diablo turns to the two floozies at the bar. He goes, "Come on, ladies. He's a friend of mine." He goes outside. He loads the girls in the horse and carriage out in front of the bar. And he starts going, "Giddy up," right? Well, the horse isn't going anywhere. So somebody walks by and goes, "Sir, the blocks are behind the wheels." He goes, "Yeah, could you just move those?" Guy moves the blocks and the horse and carriage starts going down 57th Street or 59th Street. I forget. It's a long time ago. So the horse and carriage, the girls are in the back and he's having his time. But the horse quickly figures out. I mean, this guy grew up in the Bronx, not around horses. The horse figures out there's an idiot behind the reins. It's not the normal guy. So what does the horse start doing? The horse starts blowing lights. The horse starts making a left when he wants it to go right. Finally, the horse has enough of this and says, "You know what? I'm going back to the barn to get some oats." The horse turns around and starts going into a trot towards Central Park, and El Diablo can't control the horse and carriage. Well, the girls in the back now are screaming for their lives, "Get me out of this thing." He can't stop the horse and carriage. They go into Central Park, and two other hansom cab operators see the runaway horse and carriage and go, "Hey, wait a minute, isn't that Bobby's horse and carriage?" So they know it's stolen. It's like a scene out of Ben-Hur. The other two horse and carriage operators go chasing after him. They get into Central Park and they box it. I mean, this could have gone so wrong. One of the horse and carriage gets in front of him in Central Park. The other one gets down and they slow the out of control horse and carriage down, right? The two floozies jump out of the horse and carriage and they take off running. The two handsome cab operators want to beat the shit out of El Diablo. And he's like, "Oh, I'm a cop, I'm a cop, I'm a cop." Somehow their friend gets there and he goes, "Take me to an ATM. I'll take out $500 right now and we'll make this go away." They went to the ATM. El Diablo took out $500, paid the handsome cab operator, and that was the end of it. So we used to say about this guy, he had the Prince of Darkness running interference. He did a 20-year career, but it was always one that he was dating a girl he met on a daisy chain who had gotten arrested for burning her car. It just never ended with this guy.
Yeah. That's amazing. And you talked earlier about your time as a detective with Grand Theft Auto and stuff. Talk a little bit about that book as well. Maybe some of the things and.
Yeah, Grand Theft Auto covers my 10 years in the NYPD's auto crime division. So there's stories in there about what happens to your car after it gets stolen, where it goes, where it could go, the mindset of a car thief, who your car thief is, the different types of car thieves, how to protect yourself from getting your car stolen, the scams, what to look for when you're purchasing a used car that you don't get burned, either buying a stolen one or one that's screwed up. And then there's just stories about the car thieves and the cases that I arrested and the cases I was involved in.
That's amazing. And so these cars could be stolen How quickly would they leave New York City? A stolen car, for example.
Well, they usually never left New York City. So in the 90s, in the 90s, New York City was averaging 150,000 stolen cars a year in the five boroughs. So it was like shooting fish in the barrel. If you had a computer in your car and you ran enough plates and you knew what to look for, and I go into that, there's a science actually of how to spot someone driving a stolen car, at least there was. And there's different reasons for stealing cars. So let's start at the bottom tier, right? So these are like the pains in the asses. This is either children or drug addicts. Children steal, teenagers, adolescents, they steal. It's a rite of passage. They go joyriding. They steal a car. They go pick up their girlfriend. They go to the movies. They drive around. They want to be seen that they're the cool kid driving a stolen car. A drug addict will steal a car to get around, to go to his drug spot, to buy drugs, to go use it to go. He's going to go into Home Depot and steal things. He's going to park the stolen car in the parking lot, go in there and boost things and either sell it in the street or then come back 15 minutes later and say, hey, I bought this stuff and I don't have a receipt. They're a pain in the ass, but usually you recover those cars because they'll drive those cars until it runs out of gas or it gets a flat tire or there's a mechanical issue. The way they get caught is they hang on to those cars and they're dirty. The license plates are hanging off the car. They get a flat tire and they throw that little crappy balloon tire on there that's only supposed to go 40 miles and they go 400 on it until the tire blows out.
Yeah.
They're a pain in the ass. Then you have like then you have guys that'll steal cars for the body shops. Body shops put in orders. A body shop can go out and you crash your car and you go to body shop A and they tell you it's going to cost $3,000 to fix this car and your deductible is going to be $1,500. And it's going to take 2 weeks to get the parts and fix your car. You go to body shop B and he tells you I can fix your car for $1,000. Don't worry about the deductible and I'll have it ready in 3 days. Where are you going to go? You're going to go to body shop B. Yeah. Body shop B has local kids or steel guys and he'll say, you go, okay. He'll say, okay, take care. I'll get on the phone. I'll call one of my guys. I'm like, I need a 2014 Nissan Maxima, black in color, and try to get one with the Bose speakers because I need the speakers for my car. So to order. Wow. They'll put in there. You got guys that drive around and they'll steal a car for that. And those guys get paid a couple of $100 a car. In the old days before GPS systems and LoJack and everything else, and when vehicles were easy to steal, the cars usually would go right into the shop. The car would go into the shop, would go into a junkyard. They'd close the gate and they'd start cutting it. The car would usually go in later in the afternoon or evening. They'd close the door or gate. They'd start taking the pieces off it. And depending on how bad they stripped it, if they really stripped the hell out of it, then what they would do with a Sawzall or a torch, they would cut the car into sections. And then there's a guy that goes around. We call it bones. When a car is stripped down to nothing. So you got guys, we call it a bones truck, that go around and they hit the local body shops. And what they do is they have a truck or a van, they load the bones in there, and then they take it to a scrap metal processor and they get paid by the pound.
Yeah.
You also have car thieves that steal them for cars for tagging. So I want a 2017 BMW, but I don't want to pay $35,000. So what I'll do is I'll pay a guy $10,000. That guy will go out and steal the car. He'll put it in his garage or backyard. He'll go to an auction. He'll buy a wrecked one. He'll take the paperwork and the vehicle identification number of that and do the switcheroo and sell you the car for a third, 2/3 less of the value. Wow. Then you have car thieves that steal cars for the big money is cars getting stolen outside the country because you're dealing with governments for the most part. So like I've said, we did a case where we had stolen cars with Chinese nationals that were shipping 30 stolen cars a month to Shanghai. So, it was, and they were paying $5,000 a car. So the middleman was getting $5,000 a car, and then he would pay each thief between $500 and $1,000 per car.
So you mentioned, I think when we talked earlier, that you had a case where there was a big name person who their vehicle or something was stolen and you tracked it down?
Yeah, we had an informant. He was a dirtbag, but he was a confidential informant. We used to call him the weatherman because he always knew what was going on outside. And
love the name.
one day he called us up. He called us up on a Monday. I'll never forget this. And he goes, there was a guy he used to go out. There was a guy he used to set up. There was this guy, Horatio, who's since now passed. But Horatio was a prolific car thief, and he used to hang around with him. And he says, I was with Horatio over the weekend, and we were going down. We're taking the West Side Highway into Manhattan. And who do we see on a brand new Ducati, which back then was like a $30,000 Italian motorcycle? We saw Mike Tyson. I said, get out of here. He goes, yeah, we followed him to the Javits Center, which is a convention center in Manhattan. I don't know what the convention was, but Mike Tyson parked his Ducati on the street and went into this convention center. Horatio jumped on the bike, cracked the ignition, and stole the bike. I go, where's the bike? He goes, the bike's in Horatio's apartment. Horatio had a ground floor apartment in the Washington Heights section of Manhattan. I know it's crazy for people listening to this go, come on, someone would drive a motorcycle into an apartment. Go to the Washington Heights or Google what Washington Heights looks like, and it won't surprise you. So I says, all right, great. Give me Horatio's apartment number. I'm going to get a search warrant written to hit the apartment and get this bike back. He goes, so the informant tells me this. He goes, well, hold off on that. He's already got 2 other stolen motorcycles in his apartment. He's taking them apart. He's putting them in crates. And once he gets to about 5 or 6 bikes, he's going to ship them to the Dominican Republic. I said, all right, can you get the shipping company and everything? He goes, yeah. I said, all right. So a couple of weeks go by and we're on to other things. My partner calls me up over the weekend and he says, you want to make overtime? I go, on a Sunday? I go, what's up? He goes, Horatio and a couple of guys are loading those crates of stolen motorcycles. They've taken them apart. They've wrapped them in bubble wrap and everything. They're in crates. They're loading them into a stolen van. They're going to drive out to Kennedy Airport. We were under the impression they were going in shipping containers to be shipped to the Dominican Republic. He goes, no, they're going. There was air freight out of Kennedy. I forget the name of the company. He says, if we get there now, we can be waiting for them when they pull up with the van. Sure enough, we get there. We tell the shipping company what's going on. They said, no problem. We're just waiting there. They park the van. They get out and we arrested him. We got Mike Tyson's stolen Ducati and I forget how many stolen motorcycles.
Wow. That's amazing. That's really cool. So you mentioned earlier you're working on another book. Can you give us an insight on what's coming?
Yeah, my new book is called, it should be out in a couple of months. It's called Confessions of a Catholic High School Graduate. It's basically about my life growing up in the Bronx, why I became a police officer in my 4 years of Catholic high school. No, I wasn't abused or anything like that. It's not a tale of woe. It's more just my experiences and the crazy things that were going on around me in the Bronx that I guess influenced me into becoming a police officer.
Excellent. So if somebody's looking at your list of books on Amazon right now and they're deciding which book to start with from your library, do you have a starting point?
I would go with NYPD Law and Disorder because it mentions all the other books. And listen, I think all my books are good, but I think my writing has gotten better. Trial and error. So I would go with NYPD Law and Disorder. I mean, I'm proud of all of them, but I would start there.
Excellent. Any tips for new authors who are writing a book?
Yeah. You can write the greatest book in the world. I got a bunch of, well, first of all, people do judge a book by its cover. Don't skimp on a book cover. And also don't fall prey. When I got into writing, I started how am I going to get this book project off the ground? And I Googled it, and there's all these companies. We'll do everything for you. Just give us 5,000, 3,000, 10,000. We'll give you a ghostwriter. We're going to edit your book. We're going to give you a book cover. We're going to promote it. Yeah, they're going to take your money and shaft you. There's a great company I've been working with. You should check it out. It's in Canada. Okay. It's called ebooklaunch.com. They're great. It's a la carte. They don't promise you anything. You could go on. A book cover costs about $500, but their book covers. I think my book covers come out great. The graphic design department of that company is just out of this world. You email them your manuscript based on words. You can pay for a copy edit. You can pay for a proofread. They'll put you with, and they guarantee the authors. They also do formatting. That's another thing authors don't realize, that after your book project is edited, it has to be formatted to be uploaded for ebook form and paperback on the Amazon platform. So you don't want to skimp on that either. For me to get a paperback and ebook off the ground, all in is $2,500.
Wow. Excellent.
But that's doing it correctly. And then once you get your book out there, market. I mean, my books sell, but if I take a couple of days off and I'm not digitally marketing it or going on podcasts, I see a dip in sales. So you're always performing CPR on your books. You could have the greatest book in the world, but if nobody knows about it, no one's going to buy it.
Yeah.
So you have to put yourself out there. You have to digitally market it. You have to get it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You got to find your niche and go on, like people like yourself that are nice enough to put me on their platforms with radio. And you got to go out there. You got to reach out to people. You know, for every 10 no's, you're going to get a yes occasionally.
Excellent. Well, definitely, Vic, I'm going to have you come on when your next book is done. I want to have you on and let's chat about that. And around the launch date, let's organize that in advance. Any last thoughts you want to leave the audience with? We're connecting authors and audiences. That's what we're trying to do.
You said you wanted to hear a 9/11 story.
Yes. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Okay. So when 9/11 happened, I was about 35 years old. So I had about 14 or 15 years in with the NYPD. By that point, I had seen homicides and terrible things. So I'll never forget. It was a Tuesday morning and I came in at 7 a.m. We were up in the Bronx and I had court that day. And I had Manhattan Criminal Court, which is literally down the block from the Trade Center. It's several blocks away. I had arrested a guy for a couple of stolen cars. He didn't want to go to jail. So he was going to become a confidential informant and give up a person that was working in the Department of Motor Vehicles that was pumping out driver's licenses under phony names. So we were going to sit down with the district attorney and his attorney and work out an agreement. So my sergeant was supposed to come down with me. So 7 o'clock, my sergeant doesn't show up. 8 o'clock, where the hell is my sergeant? I'm waiting on this guy. My sergeant comes breezing through the door at 8:15, 8:30, something like that. And I'm like, hey, come on, we got to go. We're going to be late because it's a good 45-minute ride into Manhattan. And then by the time you find a parking space or walk to the courthouse, I don't want to piss off the district attorney. He goes, all right, I'm getting ready. Just take it easy. Well, our office was upstairs from the housing police. A couple of housing cops ran upstairs and said, put on the television, a plane hit the World Trade Center. So we're watching it unfold on TV. And then the second plane hit and we're like, oh shit, this is terrorism. So we got into uniform. They told us to sit tight. By about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, we drove down there. We went parked on the west side of Manhattan. And by 1:30, I was on the ground. I mean, walking around in it. And it was like something out of a movie. The closer you got to it, the sunlight really wasn't penetrating the debris. So it was kind of like a twilight, even though it was 1:30 in the afternoon. And we had these paper masks you would buy at Home Depot. But I mean, I'm sure that really wasn't helping much. There was just paper and debris just flying around. And the one thing I'll never forget is that we were walking down, I think it was Broadway, getting closer to the Trade Center. You had all this volcanic ash, debris all over the place, covering everything. The one thing that stood out in all that ash was thousands upon thousands of pairs of women's shoes. Because women that worked on Wall Street in the financial district, when they were trying to get the hell out of there, couldn't run in their high heels. So they took their heels off and just left them in the street and ran barefoot. But it was the weirdest thing, like walking through all that, and you just shoes, women's shoes everywhere, high heel shoes.
Yeah.
So, there was crazy stuff going on. I mean, there was a guy in a military outfit with a Geiger counter walking around. We didn't even know who the hell he was. It was just weird. Like the closer you got to the rubble pile, there'd be like a television set and a baseball from someone's desk and paperwork. It was like a blender of stuff, just thrown everywhere. And I remember like seeing the facade, like one of the facades of the metal, that screen-like thing that protected the World Trade Center. I'm like, I just couldn't believe what I was looking at. I just, how does this happen? I felt like a child seeing something that I just couldn't comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
So we were down there walking around from about 1:30 in the afternoon. I didn't go home until about 5:30 a.m. the next day. And they told us, take your clothes off, either throw it out or really run it well through a washing machine because of all that debris. And, oh, by the way, be back at 5:30 tonight. And we did. And my office was back there for the first several days, and they pulled us back. And since I worked in the auto crime division, I spent a lot of time out in Staten Island, where they have a tremendous landfill that was closed for many years, and they had to reopen it to get all the debris out there to, sift through it. So what they had us doing out at the landfill, they had us with like jaws of life and stuff, prying open these cars and wrecked vehicles to make sure there weren't people that perished in there. But we didn't find anybody in there.
That was a day I don't think anybody will ever forget. And I know even up here in Canada, it just rocked every part of the world, right? And you saw heroes running towards, in some cases, their demise. And you can't get those pictures out of your head. Even this long past the event, your mind goes there in a second. And what we saw and what we experienced from our side of the screen, I have no idea how you and your fellow officers and all the first responders could do that. And I just want to say thank you, for serving.
It's a job. I mean, it can be a dangerous job. Like I said, by that point, I was pretty much exposed to a lot of things. So you learn to compartmentalize things and not bring things home with you. It's bad, but I mean, you just can't go to pieces over it. I mean, the guys I worked with, to the best of my knowledge, didn't have any psychological problems afterwards because, again, my office was a lot of the older guys. So we had been through so many things before. I mean, obviously not downplaying what happened down there, but, we were prepared for it, I would say. I mean, a cop in New York, I mean, you just see so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You think your day is going one way and it just goes sideways and goes somewhere else.
That's what I love, Vic, about having some books here that gives some levity and some funny stories behind the badge. It kind of helps to offset some of that other stuff. And I encourage everybody that's listening to go grab Vic's books and make sure you grab them all, because there's some really great stuff in here, some amazing stories. I know we only touched the tip of each book, but Vic, it's great to kind of hear about the stories and to share your writings with all these people that are listening. I really appreciate it.
And thank you very much for having me on your show. I appreciate it.
Excellent, Vic. We'll talk again soon when the next book comes, all right?
Okay, take care.
Okay, thanks, Vic.
Bye.
Hi, guys. This is Dave from Living the Next Chapter, a podcast designed to connect authors and audiences. We're always on the lookout for our next interview. If you're an author, a publisher, and you have a book, whether you're just starting, whether you're halfway through writing, or it's all done and you want to tell the world, that's why we're here at Living the Next Chapter. Get in touch with us through livingthenextchapter.com, contact us, and let's set up some time together to discuss your book, to discuss your project, and how we can get you on the show. My name is Dave, and I would love to speak to you. So go to livingthenextchapter.com, and let's get over there together and discuss all the great things that you're up to as an author, as a publisher, and let's grow your audience together. Join us on livingthenextchapter.com for great authors and an audience that's eager to hear about what you're up to as an author and a publisher. Contact us today and let's get your book out in front of others. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.